Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Eddie Jennings from EJSLLC.com. This video is another in my Red Hat Certified Specialist in Identity Management Exam EX362 Practice Session series. Before I dive in, I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, as well as invite anyone who's watching, if you haven't subscribed, to click that subscribe button and ring the bell when you do, so you know when new content is available. Also, a reminder that these are my practice sessions for the exam. My exam is just over 2 weeks away, and so I'm going through all of the published objectives from Red Hat and trying to either explain the concept behind the objectives or do some exercises to practice whatever the objective wants you to do. And at the end of the video, then I will do a little self-assessment, and hopefully I will feel confident with the objective and ready to do tasks or likely tasks on the exam around the objective. Or I still have a couple of weeks to shore up some knowledge gaps if I need to. That being said, these should not be considered tutorials, nor should they be considered training materials or authoritative information. I am learning right along with you as I'm preparing for the exam. I do try to have the information accurate because hopefully at this point in my preparation I haven't learned something wrong, but understand that these should not be used as tutorials or training materials. I put these out on the internet in hopes of some of you that might be working toward this exam. You'll see some of the stuff that I am doing to practice, and that might inspire you to come up with ways for you to also prepare for the exam. So the objectives for this particular exam, in my opinion, leave a little bit to be desired. And I think for the last several Red Hat exams I've done, I've found some critique of the objectives. Like, they're not bad objectives. I mean, there's stuff that needs to be done, but there can be some lack of clarity. And I know in some exams in the past, like I think I've mentioned this almost every practice session series, but I remember for RHCSA, some of the storage related objectives, I had to kind of Google search through Red Hat documentation and find some Red Hat stuff for RHEL documentation that happened to have some words that matched some of the objectives on the exam. And so that's how I was able to figure out, what Red Hat's talking about. So within the install and configure Red Hat identity management set of objectives, we have the create users, groups, and policies, which that's quite broad. And what I mean by quite broad, if I were to log into my IDM server, which I'll need to trust the certificate, or not trust the certificate, but basically say, hey, I know that that's a certificate signed by an entity that I don't inherently trust. Let me zoom a little bit. It should make this a little bit easier to read on the video. Within just policy, there are several different things we can do. We can do host-based access rules, which this will determine whether or not a user is able to authenticate in particular ways to a host. And when I say authenticate in particular ways, this isn't just for SSH, and we can go into that. We can configure pseudo rules for users. So just like if you're altering etc sudoers.conf, or you put some other configuration files in, etc, I think it's sudo.conf.d, if I remember off the top of my head, the directory, you can create rules that are stored within our LDAP directory that SSSD can reference for users to be able to centrally manage sudo permissions. The SC Linux user maps I have not used frankly at all. This is something that I need to take a look at between now and the exam. I'm not going to do any examples of it. I think I say that, and I'm going to click add. Yeah, this is something that I need to look up. Basically, the training I've done thus far has been primarily with the Red Hat course that's associated with this exam, because there's really, when you get to the RHCA kind of stuff, there's not a lot of third-party things out there. And this, I don't think, or at least if it was, I don't recall touching this in that. So that'll be something I need to look up. You can create password policies. You can create Kerberos ticket policies, passkey configuration. not 100% sure about this. This will be something that I look up, but there's several things that fall under policy. So when we look at the exam objective here, what do we mean by policies, especially since later on in the objectives, which of course the objectives aren't necessarily designed for, go in this order. For example, I'm not going to do a practice session for this video series for configuring IDM clients until we're down here, but we've obviously done some client configurations at the top just within the servers themselves. But there is a whole section for IDM users and policies, of which it talks about configuring policies and user access. Well, user access, I could see that falling under the HBAC rules, and then policies, again, that could be password policies, that can be pseudo policies. So I'm not 100% sure exactly, what I should do for this practice session. You could make an argument that this is specifically talking about user access policies as far as host-based access control. I guess one thing that I can do is specific to IPA server. So you have RBAC rules, or role-based access control, which I could argue is a policy of some type that you can assign to users and groups. And each of these roles is going to have certain, I'm not sure if they're actually called permissions or if they are called privileges, but let's take a look at user administrator role. Privileges is what they're called. So this role has these particular privileges. If I click user administrators, we can dig into the privilege of user administrator and we see these different permissions. So if you have a role that grants you the privilege of user administrator, these are the different permissions that you would be able to do. You can create users, you can modify users, you can unblock a user, all of these kind of things. And there are several of these that are built in. As far as privileges, you have your group administrators, you can do commands that are related to DNS, and you can also add a permission. If for some reason you wanted those that have the DNS server's privilege to also be able to add host-based access control rules, then you could potentially add that to DNS server privilege set, and then that privilege set can be associated with roles. Wouldn't necessarily recommend that you do that for DNS, but that's an example of kind of how that would work. I suppose I can do a session with this, and this is something I've done primarily with the GUI when I've practiced it, but we're going to add ourselves a role name. We're going to call it good old test role 1, and this role, basic DNS configuration and user management. If I click add and edit and start adding some privileges, what I'm curious of is, okay, this makes sense. So what I need to do with privileges is make myself a set of permissions. Let's call it test privs 1. Add and edit. Now we can add some permissions. So let's say we want them to be able to add DNS entries. There's several different things with this you can do. We're not going to let them play with DNSSEC. I think just adding DNS entries is good enough. We won't let them modify the DNS server configuration. And I said we can do stuff with users. So, and of course I don't have all these permissions memorized, but they are fairly self-explanatory, I think. I know there has to be some stuff with users. Individual permissions, because they would be making up the privilege group of the user administrators. Oh, I want to be able to read the DNS configuration. Add that in there too. I'm sure I have overlooked this somehow. Or maybe not. No, there they are. I don't know why I couldn't find that. So filter by user, and then stuff magically starts to appear. What I want to do is let these people add users. There it is. So that's all they can do. They can just add users. Let's see, settings. Yeah, we can add a description there. Now we can attach this privilege group to a role. So we'll add that to test role 1. I need to dig into some of these a bit more. I think delegations. Okay, yeah, this is something that I need to review some more. This was earlier in that course, and I haven't touched it in a while. So I guess for this user, or for this role, we'll use test user 2. So test user 2 should have this role. And while we're at it, we're going to create, since I'm in here, a user for test user 1. Doesn't really matter that what I have for first and last name for this. So I think we did monkey 123, which will be changed to 456 in just a moment. And the user, test user 1 already exists. Yeah, I thought, I know why. Yeah, it's a preserved user. So let's restore this user. Well, with my practice sessions, I often don't completely clear the environment every time. But all right, so let us, what I want to do is set your password. Should be able to do that from here. See, this is where the GUI can get in the way sometimes. Oh, there's our reset password. You can tell I've done password stuff more on the CLI than I have the GUI. So we'll set it to monkey123. Okay, so now let's put our little role-based access to the test. So we're going to sign out of IDM. Let's log in as test user 1, monkey123. It's going to make us change that. We'll say 456 monkey, lowercase m. All right, and so basically what we get to see here, this user can see all of the active users. They can alter their one-time password tokens, and they can change the attributes for their actual user account. So let's log out and log in as test user 2, which we put into that role. Monkey 123, or no, this is already 456 monkey. And we see with test user 2, we have far more stuff. Apparently we can see policies. Let's see if we can add an HBAC rule name. Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay, this is what we discovered on another practice session. You can look like you can do stuff, but you won't actually have the permissions to do so. Let's go to identity. Let's see if we can disable test user 1. Yep, insufficient access. That's what we expect to see. But I should be able to add a user. So we'll do test user 6, monkey 123. I'm going to click add and edit. That kind of makes sense because I did not give them the right to edit user or modify users. I just gave them the right to add it. So let's try to just add. See if that works. No, that does not work. All right, that is something that, yeah, I need to spend some more time practicing the individual permissions because I may have just made up a kind of random set. And I think, of course, there's no way to know what you'll be asked to do on the exam, but I could see kind of because the exams are really designed to kind of train you for real life, and I could see in real life. Well, that's already, as I say, I could see you wanting to make a separate role-based access for IDM to just manage users. Well, we already have users administrators there, so now, off the top of my head, it's 9:30 at night. I'm kind of tired. I can't exactly think of what extra things that we would do. I'm sure there's stuff out there, but this will be something I want to spend some more time with. I do want to try to make this user without a password and just see what happens. Nope. So it can't do its thing. Now let's go into network services and see if we can make a DNS record. Of course, I can test this on the CLI as well. So it's curious that it's not showing any zone names. So that I might have the ability to add a record, but I don't have the ability to read the zones. So this will be idm ejslab.com. Oh, this is adding a zone. Ah, yeah. Yeah, we can't see. Thought we'd be able, well, we can see the or we can view global configuration, but apparently we can't view the zones themselves. Thus, I know that this is a DNS server. So let's go back to our admin user. And let's play around just a little bit. This is something I encourage you to do with your practice is mess around with permissions, or really whatever any of the topics are, because you can learn a little bit from doing that. Let's go back to our, actually this will be under IPA server for role-based access control. Go into our test role, and then, test user 2, we gave it those privileges. And let's add some permissions to these privileges. So we could read DNS configuration. Let's add, look at DNS, like what minimum thing do we need? I'm really surprised that I couldn't see the zones. I'm not seeing anything here that is, oh, maybe it's read DNS entries. Now I probably should practice this on the command line. I think the next one I'll add, we'll find it here and then put it on the command line to practice. All right, so we'll log out, log back in as test user 2. Let's go to network services, DNS zones. All right, now we see our zones. I don't think we can add a zone. Just try foo.egslab.com. Yeah, I figured we would not have the access for adding a zone, but we should be able to add a record. So record name foo.egs or .idm. Actually, I don't think I have to do that because I'm already in the zone. And we won't create a reverse record. We'll just see if we can add this in the GUI real quick. Yep, and we can add the foo record. Now, since I added it, I wonder if I can delete it. I doubt it because I did not give it the modify permission. So we'll see if we can delete the record. Nope, and insufficient access. So I guess we can try the command line for this. This will be an example on the exam. You might want to use, it might be faster to configure it on the command line, but you might want the GUI to see the name of the thing that you're configuring, or maybe you have an objective that forces you to use the command line, but you can still use the GUI as a guide. So we'll go back to authentication. No, not authentication, IPA server. Oh, yep, still logged in as test user 2. That does not have access to work with role-based access controls. Now I'm kind of laughing at myself. I was worried at the start of this practice session because I try to not prepare for these practice sessions. I try to make them as genuine as I can. Sometimes preparation would be like setting up GitLab or something to where it's ready to go for doing things with Git versus having a practice session of setting up GitLab. But with this, I just kind of sat down and saw policies and thought, well, that's vague. Anyway, so let us... we can probably do it solely from the command line. Let's try that. Go ahead and grab a ticket as admin. There we go. Monkey123 to the rescue. All right. And this, I believe, is IPA RBAC. As I said, typically I'm doing this stuff via the GUI versus the command line. So let's say I'm on the exam and I'm stuck and I cannot remember the specific command line stuff for role-based access control. So what can we do? Help, right? Topics. Okay, and it's just roles. So IPA role, and that's what I intended to see here. So let's do role find. We should see our test role 1. Yep. We have add privilege. I know that we have, let me do role show for this because I'm curious to see what's going to come up with that. So IPA role show test role 1. Okay, and it has test privilege 1. So let's do IPA role, do add privilege -- help. Do IPA help topics again because I want to think there needs to be something for the creation of privileges as well as, or because we add the permissions to the privileges. This makes more sense. So IPA privilege, There we go. So privilege find, and that's where we're adding permissions. Yep, this makes sense. Okay, and then there's our test privs. I'm going to copy this, IPA privileges show. Okay, and that has the those permissions. The delegation thing, that's something I'm going to need to look into again between now and the exam, because I remember having some exercises where I had to like do delegation of roles, but I don't remember that off the top of my head. All right, so now we can do IPA. Was there a separate one for permissions? I didn't think so, but we can look. Yeah, there was. So IPA permission, and generally you can kind of see a pattern here. Permission find. Oh yeah, there's all sorts of stuff. Number of entries returned 100. Oh goody. And this is an example of one of these things that it might be easier to just do the GUI with it. Let's do, first of all, let's see what all we have with permission find. Can add a permission. I didn't think about that. So permission find -- help. Maybe there's, yeah, this is getting outside of my knowledge here. All right, so I think the takeaway for this, with all the other different types of privileges, going back to I'm not going to consider this a complete fail with policies. For role-based access control, I'm not going to consider it a complete fail, because I think for the basic stuff that we will probably have to do on the exam, I'm fairly ready, especially if it's, needing to assign the built-in privilege sets to folks, like create a role and add current privilege sets. As far as the making of a privilege set, I'm pretty confident with that. I don't obviously have the individual permissions memorized. What I do need to review more is delegation of roles, and get straight in my head again exactly what IDM is meaning for that, because at 9:51 on September 30th I am drawing a blank. So hopefully you found this video useful, or at the very least entertaining, as I bumbled through stuff. If you did, make sure you do click like. I want to thank again returning subscribers for watching another video, as well as invite anyone who's watching, if you haven't subscribed, to click the subscribe button. Thanks again for your time, and I will see you the next time.